Hi students, I want to continue the lesson Heredity, and which we have to talk about the nucleic acids, the genetic material. So, the nucleic acids are two different types, one DNA, another one RNA. In our syllabus given only the DNA, not RNA. Before starting the structural aspects of nucleic acid, either DNA or RNA, I want to give some information about the historical aspect of nucleic acids. Now, the nucleic acids were first isolated by Friedrich Miescher in 1869. Friedrich Miescher in 1869, he used the term nuclein. Later, the name nucleic acid was given by Altman. So this is something about that one. I don't want to go further, we will discuss more and more in higher classes. Coming back to this one, so the nucleic acids are the important constituents of the cell, particularly the DNA, because they carry the hereditary information from one generation to another generation. Now a model of nucleic acid, the DNA, was provided by two different people, Watson and Crick. Watson and Crick. James Watson and Frederick Crick in 1953, they proposed the molecular model of DNA, that is the double helical model of DNA. The molecular model of DNA, the double helical model of DNA, based on the diffraction studies of two different people. They did diffraction study to show the images of nucleic acid. One person by name Rosalind Franklin, one person by name Rosalind Franklin, another one Morris Wilkins. Morris Wilkins. These were the two people just actually studied the nucleic acids using X-ray diffraction studies, and based on the diffraction studies proposed by them, Watson and Crick proposed the molecular model of DNA. That is nothing but the double helical model of DNA. Now, if you are taking a DNA or RNA, they are being formed of a number of units, millions of units. The millions of units that make up the nucleic acids are called the nucleotides. So, either DNA or RNA is having units called nucleotides. Each one is being formed of millions of nucleotides. Now, this is a double helical model of DNA. It is just like a ladder. It is being twisted. It is being twined. So that what is happening, we have a helical structure. Now, this is not the place of overlapping, because in a ladder we have what is called actually the crossbars or steps. The same manner, we have some bases are present in between the two strands, and the distance between the two strands is always constant from the terminal end to the another end. That's why they are being in the form of helical structure, having the same distance between the two strands. Now, coming back to the chemical nature, I mentioned already, it is a double-stranded structure arranged in the form of a helix. Each strand is being formed of millions of nucleotides. So, DNA is a polynucleotide formed of two strands, and each strand is being formed of many nucleotides. Now, what is a nucleotide? That is a chemical nature. The units of nucleic acid is a nucleotide. If you are taking a nucleotide, it is being formed of three components. One, a nitrogen base, nitrogen containing base. Another one, a sugar, a pentose sugar. A sugar having 5 carbons, a pentose sugar, either deoxyribose sugar or ribose sugar, a pentose sugar, and a phosphoric acid molecule. So these two combine together to form a unit, what's called the nucleotide. and these nucleotides make up each strand of the DNA. Now if you are taking the nitrogen bases, I am telling that each nucleotide is found of one nitrogen base, one pentose sugar, either ribose sugar or deoxyribose sugar. In the case of DNA, the sugar is deoxyribose sugar and a molecule of phosphate or phosphoric acid. Now, the nitrogen bases are classified into two types. Now, I am removing this one, the helical model, and coming back to this one. So, what are the nitrogen bases? So, the nitrogen bases are nothing but actually heterocyclic nitrogen containing compounds. They are being classified into two types. One, purines. Another one, pyrimides. Another one, pyrimides. Purines and pyrimides. So, all the nitrogen bases found in a nucleic acid are grouped under two headings. One purine, another one pyrimide. Now, these are heterocyclic compounds having nitrogen in them. So, the purine is a double ring compound. This is the skeleton of the purine. The pyrimidine is a single ring compound, just like a benzene ring. This is the skeleton. Now, they contain nitrogen here and there. That's not necessary. You'll see that one later. Now, the purines are again of two types. There are two types of purines. One, adenine. I am using the letter A for that one, adenine. Number two, guanine. I am using the letter G. The pyrimidines are also of two types. One, actually you can say three types. I'll tell you the reason why I'm telling two types. One, cytosine. Number two, thymine. Number three, uracil. I am using the letter C for cytosine, T for thymine, U for uracil. Why I am telling that one? Only there are four nitrogen bases in any one of the nucleic acids, either in RNA or DNA. We have only four nitrogen bases. Now, adenine, guanine, cytosine are common for both RNA and DNA. Adenine, guanine, cytosine are common to both RNA and DNA. Whereas in the case of DNA, we have thymine. So, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine are the bases found in DNA. Whereas in the case of RNA, we have uracil instead of thymine. So, RNA has adenine, guanine, cytosine and uracil. That's why I say, in any of the nucleic acids, we have only four types of nitrogen bases. So, this is about the nitrogen bases. So, these five types of nitrogen bases are grouped into two headings, namely purines and pyrimidines. Then, what about the sugar? The next one, what we have sugar. It is a pentose sugar having 5 carbon in it. That is called pentose sugar, a 5 carbon compound. C5H10O5. This is a pentose sugar. Now this is the skeleton of the pentose sugar. I am drawing only the skeleton of the pentose sugar. Now this is carbon number 1. This is carbon number 2, this is carbon number 3, this is carbon number 4, here the carbon number 5. So this is a ring compound having what is called 5 carbons, hence called a pentose sugar. Here the sugar is called deoxyribose sugar. There is a difference between deoxyribose sugar and ribose sugar. We don't know now, we will talk about in higher classes. So this is a pentose sugar, a deoxyribose sugar. It is a monosaccharide made up of only one unit, hence called a monosaccharide. So, one nitrogen base, one pentose sugar, one phosphoric acid molecule together form the nucleotide. Here I represented the nucleotide. You see that one at the right hand top corner. Now this is the nucleotide. This is the nucleotide. You see that one? This is what is called the base, a nitrogen base. It is attached to the first carbon of the sugar. Then we have the phosphine. which is attached to the fifth carbon of the sugar. So this is what we got, the phosphate plus sugar plus base. That is called as a nucleotide. This is a skeleton what I represented, and this is what I represented, that is in the form of equations. So one base, one sugar, one phosphate together form the nucleotide. The base is attached to the first carbon of the sugar. Now the phosphate is attached to the fifth carbon of the sugar. Based on this only we have 5-8 or 3-10, accordingly we can see later. Now the nitrogen base plus sugar is called a nucleoside. A nitrogen base together sugar is called nucleoside. When phosphate is attached to it, it becomes a nucleotide. So nitrogenous base plus sugar is called nucleoside, and while phosphate is attached to it, it is called a nucleotide. So the nucleotide is nothing but an acid. Normally the DNA is a negatively charged molecule. The DNA is a negatively charged molecule. So I mentioned about what is a nucleotide, what is a nucleus. We have to go further. What are the properties of nucleotides and nucleic acids? Now, there are 4 types of nucleotides are formed based on the nature of the purine and pyrimidine present. So we have adenine nucleotide, this is 1, guanine nucleotide, this is 2, the third one cytidine nucleotide, and finally thymidine nucleotide. These are the 4 different types of nucleotides present in the DNA molecule. They are found in any number, in any species, but always constant to a particular species. These 4 types of nucleotides are repeated again and again. Now I will go far. Once again about the DNA. Each DNA molecule is a double-stranded structure arranged in the form of a helix. Each helix is a polynucleotide form of thousands of nucleotides. Now, the 2 strands in a helix are anti-parallel. One strand is running in, for example, 5-3' direction. 5-3' direction. Another strand is running in 3-5' direction. This is representing what is called anti-parallel nature. Here you see that one strand starts with the 5' ending with 3'. Another one is starting with the 3' and ending with 5'. Now the 5' end refers to free phosphate group. The 3' end refers to free hydroxyl group of the sugar molecule. So it is a free phosphate group attached to the 5th carbon, and this one, a free hydroxyl group present at the 3rd position of the sugar. That's why it's called 5'3' and referring to the position of the phosphate group and the hydroxyl group. So these 2 strands are anti-parallel. Now the backbone of each strand, you can see here, the backbone of each strand here is being formed of phosphate and sugar arranged alternately. So it is called sugar phosphate backbone. The phosphate and sugar molecules are arranged alternately, forming the backbone of each strand. While the nitrogen bases are facing the center, are present in the center. Now, the nitrogen base is connected to the sugar molecule. The nitrogen base is connected to the sugar molecule, just like actually linkage. The name of the linkage by which the sugar is connected to the nitrogen base is called glycosidic linkage. Glycosidic linkage. This is the linkage between the sugar and nitrogenous base. Whereas the sugar is linked to the phosphate by means of a linkage. So this is the linkage formed between a hydroxyl group and the acidic group. Now this linkage is called ester linkage. Now this is called ester linkage. Ester linkage. Ester linkage. Now you see that one. I represented one nucleotide. This is a nucleotide. A nucleotide is formed of, you know that what, a nitrogen base, here thymine, a sugar, and then phosphate. Now this is another nucleotide. This is another nucleotide. Now the two nucleotides are joined together by means of phosphodiester linkage. Phosphodiester linkage. Now this is one ester linkage between the sugar and phosphate, and this is another ester linkage between the phosphate and the sugar. So the phosphate is now linked to, that is what is called actually the third position or the third carbon of the sugar, and it is connected to sugar in the succeeding one by means of what is called fifth carbon atom. So we have two linkages of ester. That's why it's called as phosphodiester linkage. That means the adjacent nucleotides are connected with one another by means of phosphodiester linkage. So likewise we have a number of nucleotides. You see that one, this is another nucleotide, this is another nucleotide. I represent 4 nucleotides. This is thymine nucleotide, this is adenine nucleotide, this is guanine nucleotide, this is cytosine. This is another one. Now, the nitrogenous bases are formed in the form of rungs of a ladder, the steps of a ladder. Now, the purine in one strand is always forming a pair with what is called the pyrimidine. Now, this is the purine. It forms a link with, or it is normally forms a pair with the thymine of opposite strand. The meaning for that one, the purine of one strand always forming a pair with pyrimidine. The purine of one strand is always forming a pair with pyrimidine of another strand. That means the number of purine is always equal to the number of pyrimidines in a DNA molecule. So the purine and pyrimidines are existing in the ratio of 1:1. Now, there is a law proposed. One of the important actually properties of DNA molecule, what is called base pair rule. Base pair rule. This base pair rule is also called after the name of the person, Erwin Chargaff's rule. Erwin Chargaff's rule. What is that? So there is a definite base pairing between the two strands of nucleic acids. Now here, the purine of one strand or the purine in a particular nucleic acid is always equal to the pyrimidine. Now, the number of A is always equal to the number of T. The number of G is always equal to the number of C. That means these two are the purine, these two are the pyrimidines. A is always equal to T, G is always equal to C. I mentioned about the purine. For example, A plus G. These two are the purines equal to T plus C. I mentioned C, A is equal to T, G is equal to C. And this is called base pair rule. That means the purine and pyrimidines in the nucleic acid exist in the ratio of 1:1. The number of adenine is always equal to number of thymine. The number of guanine is always equal to number of, that is cytosine. So A plus G is equal to T plus C. And again, this is called the base pair rule, or we can write in opposite way, in another way, like this. A plus C is equal to T plus G. This is also correct, because you see that one, A is equal to T, C is equal to G, as per the base pair rule. So either you can write A plus G is equal to T plus C, or A plus C is equal to T plus G. Normally we can say this is the formula only, but actually the purity is equal to number of pyrimidines. So this is called the base pair rule as proposed by Erwin Chargaff. This is called Erwin Chargaff's base pair rule. Now, you see here, this is what is called actually pyrimidine. Thymine is a pyrimidine. It pairs with adenine of the opposite strand. Here A is forming a pair with the T once again in another place. G is forming a pair with the cytosine, and C is forming a pair with the G. Wherever you have T in one strand, always in the complementary strand we have A1. Wherever you have C in one strand, in the complementary strand we have, that is, guanine. This is called complementary base pairing. Now, the two strands are held together by means of hydrogen bonds. The two strands are held together by means of hydrogen bonds. It provides stability to the nucleic acid. Again, the number of hydrogen bonds between A and T is equal to 2. I represented two lines. So, number of hydrogen bonds between A and T is equal to 2. The number of hydrogen bonds between G and C is equal to 3. So, this is another factor regarding the nucleic acid. Now, I represent in the form of the structural skeleton of nucleic acid. Now, this is the sugar and this is the sugar. Now, the fifth carbon to which we have attached the phosphate. Now, the 5' end refers to the free phosphate group attached to the fifth carbon, and the 3' end refers to the free hydroxyl group of the third carbon of the sugar. Now, you see that one. Now, the phosphate is attached to the third carbon of the preceding sugar and the fifth carbon of the succeeding sugar. So, we are getting two phosphate actually ester bond. That's why it's called phosphodiester linkage. The phosphate is attached to the third carbon of the sugar in the preceding one and the fifth carbon of the succeeding one. Here also I represented. So, we have as a result received at one end 5' with the free phosphate group. Another end we have the free carboxyl group. I represent 3' because the hydroxyl group is attached to the third carbon. It's free. That is the one which is representing what is 5' and 3'. 5' refers to the free phosphate group. 3' refers to the free hydroxyl group of the sugar. In one strand we have 5' to 3' end. In another strand we have 3' to 5' end. So here I represent, you see that one adenine and thymine. Now the adenine or thymine, they are linked to the first carbon atom. First carbon atom. Either adenine or thymine or guanine or cytosine, they are joined or linked to the first carbon atom of the sugar, and the phosphate is attached either to the third or to the fifth carbon atom. That's why it's forming what's called phosphodiester linkage. So these are some of the properties of DNA. Now, I am representing also, this is what's called a nucleotide. Here also represent the nucleotide in this simple picture. There you see that one phosphate, a sugar and nitrogen base. So that is a nature of what is called actually the nucleic acid. So the amount of nucleic acid present in DNA molecule is always constant. The sugar phosphate unit together form the backbone of the nucleic acid I mentioned earlier. And also the purine and pyrimidine bases exist in 1:1 ratio. A is equal to T, G is equal to C. Then there are 5 different forms of DNA, but the most biologically active form of DNA is the BDNA. What we describe is nothing but the structure of BDNA. Now, so it is in the form of helix, having a number of turns, and each turn is called as a pitch. This is one turn, what I mark, the mark in red, one turn. So one turn, the length of one turn is equal to 3.4 nanometer or equal to 34 angstrom. When they are just writing in angstrom, this is 34 angstrom. Now, in each turn or pitch, the number of base pairs is about 10. Number of base pairs, that is actually representing base pairs only. A is equal to T, that is called one base pair. So the number of base pairs in each turn is equal to 10. So if you just calculate the distance between two nucleotides, that is called internucleotide distance, that's equal to 3.4 divided by 10, so 0.34 nanometer. This is the internucleotide distance and the distance between two nucleotides. I mentioned the two strands are just like a ladder, where the distance between the two strands and the diameter of the DNA is always constant. Now, this is because of the base pair. Now, the diameter of the DNA molecule or the distance between the two strands is 2 nanometer or 20 angstrom. We can represent also 20 angstrom in terms of angstrom, because 10 angstrom is equal to 1 nanometer. Then the amount of DNA is always constant for a particular species. It is different from another species. We can also calculate the length of the DNA. The length of the DNA is based on the number of base pairs. That is number of base pairs. For example, in human beings, the number of base pairs is equal to 6.6 10 power 9 base pairs. Even in the case of E. coli bacterium, if you are taking E. coli bacterium, E. coli, this is a bacterium, we have the number of bases 4.6 into 10 power 6. That is the number of base pairs. So these are some of the key points related to the DNA structure, what I mentioned about. That's all about the structural aspects of DNA molecule.